The Forgotten Pup. Chapter 1, The Forgotten Pup. Once upon a time, there was a small, scruffy dog named Rusty. Rusty had been living with his owner since he was a pup, and they had loved him dearly. They would take him for long walks, play fetch with him in the backyard, and give him treats for being a good boy. But as Rusty grew older, his owners became busy with their own lives. They started to forget about Rusty, leaving him alone for hours on end. They would still feed him and give him water, but they didn't play with him or take him for walks anymore. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, Rusty began to feel forgotten. He would sit alone in the backyard, watching other dogs playing in the park across the street. He would bark and whine, hoping that his owners would come out and play with him, but they never did. Rusty started to feel sad and lonely. He would spend hours staring at the same patch of grass, waiting for someone to notice him. But nobody did. Rusty was a forgotten pup, left to fend for himself in a world that no longer cared about him. Chapter 2, Memories of Youth. As the days went by, Rusty would often think back to his youth. He remembered the days when he was a playful pup, when his owners would take him for walks and play with him in the backyard. He longed for those days, when he was loved and cared for. Rusty would sometimes whine and bark, hoping that his owners would hear him and come out to play. But they never did. They were too busy with their own lives to pay attention to him. As Rusty grew older, he began to realize that he was no longer the cute little puppy that his owners had loved. He was now an old dog, with gray hair and a scruffy coat. His owners had lost interest in him, and they no longer found him as cute as they used to. Rusty would often cry to himself, remembering the days when he was loved and cherished. He missed the feeling of being wanted and needed. But as time went by, Rusty began to lose hope. He felt like he would be forgotten forever. Chapter 3, A New Friend. One day, as Rusty was sitting alone in the backyard, a small mouse scurried up to him. Rusty was surprised to see the mouse so close to him, but he didn't bark or chase it away. Instead, he just watched as the mouse nibbled on some of the food that had been left out for him. As Rusty and the mouse continued to spend time together, they began to form an unlikely friendship. The mouse would come to visit Rusty every day, and Rusty would wait eagerly for the mouse to arrive. They would share food and talk to each other, in their own special way. One day, the mouse noticed that Rusty was chained up. It nibbled at the rope that was keeping Rusty tethered to the ground. At first, Rusty didn't understand what the mouse was doing, but then he realized that the mouse was trying to help him. With one final bite, the mouse managed to break the rope, freeing Rusty from his chains. Rusty was overjoyed to finally be free, and he ran around the backyard, exploring every inch of it. The mouse watched with pride, happy to have helped his friend. From that day on, Rusty and the mouse continued to be friends. Rusty would go out exploring the city, with the mouse by his side. They would run through the park and play in the grass, enjoying their newfound freedom. Rusty was no longer a forgotten pup, he was finally free. Chapter 4, Freedom at Last. Rusty felt like a new dog. He had never felt so alive and free. He ran through the streets of the city, exploring everything that he had missed out on for so many years. He met other dogs and played with them, wagging his tail in excitement. As the day turned to evening, Rusty made his way back to his own home. He was happy to be back, but he knew that things would be different now. He had experienced true freedom, and he didn't want to go back to being chained up again. Rusty's owners were shocked when they saw him running around, happy and carefree. They realized that they had been neglecting him, and they felt ashamed. They vowed to never forget about him again, and they promised to take better care of him from that day forward. Rusty was grateful for his newfound freedom, but he was even more grateful for his new friends, the mouse and the other dogs that he had met. He knew that he was no longer alone, and he felt loved and cherished once again. Rusty knew that he had a new lease on life, and he was determined to make the most of it. Chapter 5: A Second Chance. From that day on, Rusty's life changed for the better. His owners kept their promise, and they made sure to spend time with him every day. They took him for walks and played with him in the backyard, just like they used to when he was a pup. Rusty was happy to have his owners back in his life, and he knew that he had been given a second chance. Rusty also continued to spend time with his new friends. The mouse still came to visit him every day, and they would share food and stories with each other. Rusty had also made new friends with the other dogs in the neighborhood, and he would often meet up with them to run and play. As time went by, Rusty became known as the happiest dog in the neighborhood. He would wag his tail and bark with joy whenever he saw his owners or his friends. He had a newfound zest for life, and he lived every day to the fullest. Rusty had been given a second chance at life, and he knew that he was lucky to have it. He had learned that even when things seemed hopeless, there was always hope for a better tomorrow. Rusty was grateful for the love and friendship that he had found, and he knew that he would never forget the lessons that he had learned. The end.